Tom Pelissero, kind enough to stop by. Very busy day, obviously, as we've got so much happening in the National Football League. 2 weeks to the day.
15 days.
From kickoff, right here on the Rich Eisen Show is Tom Pelissero. How are you, Tom?
Doing well, Rich. Currently awaiting the start of the probably the final joint practice in the league. The Vikings and Cardinals getting going in Minnesota. We're winding down. We're 5 days away from final cutdown, so let's go. We got a lot of loose ends to tie.
All right, and before we get to the top story news, Tom, I've heard a rumor. Kirk Cousins has some very interesting facial hair that could rival Arthur Smith's facial hair in terms of roiling the league. Is that true or false, Tom?
There's a definite Village People vibe to what he's doing right now.
Oh.
Full handlebar. He's got some chops on the bottom of it too. I don't know how long this is going to last. Maybe he paired with Aaron Rodgers out of the division. Somebody had to pick up the mantle of bad training camp facial hair. I would anticipate that's gone by week 1.
Okay, I don't know where you are with your phone or your ears or whatever for your phone. It's very difficult to pick up. It's very muffled and it's going back in and out, Tom. I'm not going to lie. Is there some spot we can get you before we get into the meat of this, or just
we got a little bit of wind out here. I think that's the issue. Is this any better?
Yeah,
I'm trying to hide right now behind a medical tent. Is this an improvement?
Are you blue tenting for the Rich Eisen Show? Is that what you're doing right now? Is that what's going on?
I think I'm going to be cleared. I'll be cleared to return. I'm pretty sure of that.
All right.
But yeah, we'll see how long I can stay back here before I get booted.
If you can huddle mass right there, that would be fantastic. That would be great.
Are the winds coming in from the west?
I don't know.
Do we get
Traffic
a weather and
together
traffic
with Tom Pelissero? Okay. Let's just jump right into it here, Tom. Why did Kyle Shanahan make the move that he made that you and Ian broke first yesterday?
I think there's a variety of different factors to it, Rich. The most basic one is Sam Darnold had been the better quarterback through the course of camp. There was a reason that the 49ers, at a time where they weren't sure what was going to go on with Brock Purdy's elbow, they couldn't be cleared before camp, signed Darnold to a deal with a lot of incentives. He was a guy whose skill set had always intrigued Kyle Shanahan. Kyle wanted to bring him into the system. With Trey Lance, he's had a good preseason, a good camp overall. He has shown signs of improvement, but this is not 1 year ago when they kind of were, they wanted to get Trey Lance the reps and they wanted to kind of play through it and grow on the field. The 49ers are a team that thinks that they should be a Super Bowl contender right now, and they really don't have the time to let a young quarterback kind of figure it out on the field. So it comes down to Brock Purdy now is the number 1 quarterback. Darnold is the 2. Trey Lance was not in the building yesterday. My understanding is he's supposed to be back today. Kyle Shanahan even said that Lance is still going to play in tomorrow's preseason finale. Now, at the same time, there are obviously a lot of teams around the league right now who are going back to their pre-draft grades and looking at the tape on Trey Lance and trying to figure out, is this worth a shot, at a cut rate on somebody who I would think, a lot of teams within the league had first-round grades on, if not high first-round grades. What's the price tag at which the 49ers trade Trey Lance? Kyle continues to say that, he hopes that all 3 guys are there, but they also got Brandon Allen, who they like, who's a veteran in the room. We'll see what direction this goes. This is not a situation where I anticipate the 49ers are just going to take whatever they can get and give away a guy who they traded a lot of draft capital to go up and get at number 3 overall. But if there's a reasonable offer, I certainly believe that a logical outcome of all of this is that Trey Lance gets a fresh start someplace else.
Well, I mean, how much leeway is going to be given to Lance to be part of that decision, do you think? Where, if I'm Trey Lance, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, now I'm in a spot where I don't even know if I'm going to get on this field, even though I'm in the spot where number 3 quarterbacks start NFC championship games, right? And he could sit there and go, if I'm going to go somewhere and be developed, it's got to be as good of a spot as here. And I just don't want it to leave it up to the Niners to take the best possible deal and wind up in a spot where I'm behind a guy that's never going to give up the starting role and has a team or a franchise that doesn't have the same pedigree of quarterback development as the 49ers. Right, Tom?
I certainly think that the reason that Trey Lance wasn't there yesterday was, intense disappointment of exactly how this shook out. And so, give him a day to kind of catch his breath and then revisit things here. Now, I'd certainly anticipate Kyle Shanahan's a good communicator. I'm sure that he will spend more time with Trey kind of talking through things in the coming days. You also have to remember, Trey's contract here. He was the third overall pick, so he's making decent money right now. It's a fully guaranteed contract. So a new team would have to take on that deal. And also, the decision on his fifth-year option will come up after this season. Well, if he never sees the field in San Francisco, now the option in all likelihood is not getting picked up, or maybe at that point he's traded. There's a lot of different parts of this that you have to talk through. It's not as simple as, hey, sell him off to the highest bidder here. It's also the team's got to have, the cap space and the willingness to take on that type of deal for a player who, really he needs time to develop here. With Trey Lance, it was always going to be about a projection. I went back and I actually tweeted my part of my synopsis when I talked to all the coaches and scouts before the draft and what they were saying about Trey Lance. And everyone said the same thing, which is you love the kid, you love the makeup, everything about him, but it is a total projection because, the tape's a little bit up and down. Accuracy was an issue. That's continued. Injuries were an issue. That's continued. And he just hasn't had the reps to be able to get through that and develop into what the 49ers thought he could be.
So what's the market for him?
There will be a market. I'm in Minnesota today. This would be a logical place. Kirk Cousins' contract's up after the season. They drafted Jaron Hall in the 7th round. They got Nick Mullins here, but they don't have that, high-end talent, developmental type of quarterback. So a team like this, I would think, would be certainly interested in Trey Lance, and I would anticipate there's other teams, in that same direction. Now, what's the price tag on a Trey Lance trade? It's such a unique situation because it's not like this has been a Zach Wilson-style flameout. We literally haven't seen Trey Lance on the field, but for, I think 4 starts in his career, and he's only started, I want to say, 20-something games over like the last 6 years. I mean, he's barely played football, so you're really, figuring out, okay, if you had a first-round grade on him 2 years ago, how what are you willing to put down now? Nobody's going to give up a first-round pick, I wouldn't anticipate, for Trey Lance, but is it a day 2 style pick with, an extra conditional pick or something like that? That'd probably be a fair type of a deal. But again, the fact that a new team would also be taking on guaranteed money is a factor you have to consider into that price tag as well.
Well, I mean, he's from Minnesota. That would be a homecoming in a way for Lance.
Grew up in Marshall, went to North Dakota State.
Right.
His mom's still here. I saw her when they came up here for joint practices last year. His mom was out here. It would make a lot of sense. He's still young. How old's Trey Lance? I think he's 22.
He's 23. He's 23.
23, and we haven't seen him play football. Obviously, the accuracy is something that's been an issue. You got to wonder about that. Ball placement was a concern coming out of college, but how are you supposed to work on that when you're just not on the field?
So I want to ask you this, Tom, and you tell me what if this is a conversation in the league or it's just chatter. And I'll ask this question, in honor of Brockman, who's not here today. What does this mean for the evaluation of Lance by Shanahan and the Niners? Did they miss on him, or what's the general sense on that, Tom?
Well, right now, it obviously looks like a miss because we're talking about him being the third-string quarterback if he's on the roster at all in year 3. But I think you also have to remember that was, the 2021 draft. So you're talking about, coming off of COVID. There were still certain restrictions. He only played 1 game in his last year, and it wasn't a very good game against a lesser opponent. You were completely betting on what you could develop him into. I mean, this was Kyle Shanahan making a gamble. I mean, there was nothing on the tape. There was no way you were going to be able to answer the questions the teams had about Trey Lance. And there are certain, evaluators and coaches who, if you ask them, they will say they would never draft a quarterback with as little starting experience as Trey Lance had, just because, yes, you may have unlimited upside here, but you also may have, unlimited downside to a certain degree. So there were definitely people who would not have signed off on Trey Lance being drafted in the first round, period. But, for Kyle and knowing, his offense and the way that it's run, he could have drafted Mac Jones, who, Mac Jones, in terms of the way he profiled, was kind of carbon copy of Kirk Cousins, Matt Schaub, Jimmy Garoppolo, in terms of you kind of know what he is. You might be a little bit better athlete than those guys, but Mac, it would have been you're running the same offense. With Trey, the thought was you could get this additional dynamic because of the athletic ability, the mobility, the things that you could do with him in terms of the movement game and things like that. But again, you never had time really to develop it. So I wouldn't say it was about the evaluation. The 49ers didn't have, outside of the fact they ran that second pro day and kind of helped talk themselves into taking Trey Lance, they didn't really have a lot of information that everybody else didn't have. Nobody had sufficient information, but that's what scouting's about. It's about projecting, and what they projected Trey Lance to be. Maybe he still can become that. He is still a young guy. He just hasn't been on the field. And again, it really, to me, comes back to, last year the 49ers were in a different spot. Okay, we're turning over the reins to him. He's going to play through this. He's going to get 17 starts. We're going to get into the playoffs. He's going to grow over the course of the season. Now you've got a guy in Brock Purdy who can play, and you think you can go win a Super Bowl. You just don't have time to start devoting a bunch of reps to a guy who, if things go well, is never going to see the field.
That makes sense, Tom. And I know you earlier said something along the lines of, they don't want to give the reps to somebody who needs it in a situation like this one, where Purdy's ready to roll and Sam Darnold has 55 games of experience and appears ready to roll, and they just don't have time for school, right? Last year, though, right. Do you think they did? Do you think they would have gone into the season? They were going to go ahead and ride or die and go through the growing pains with Lance that just got unfortunately ended in week 2 by him getting carted off? Tom?
That was absolutely the plan. He needs to play football. There may not have been a number 3 overall pick ever who has played as little football as Trey Lance had. But, and remember, they were trying to trade Jimmy Garoppolo last offseason. He had surgery. He wasn't healthy. And the market never really materialized. He wasn't even supposed to be on the roster. And Brock Purdy was one of those guys who Kyle, every year, he identifies 1 or 2 quarterbacks that, whether it's a draft pick or an undrafted guy who he thinks has a shot in his offense. They liked Purdy. They got him at the final pick in the 7th round. And, lo and behold, he got his opportunity, and he absolutely seized it. It's different now. And I don't want to put words in Kyle Shanahan's mouth, but I think that, truthfully, if, let's say, you have a similar situation to last year and Brock Purdy gets hurt and Sam Darnold gets hurt, Brandon Allen might be on the field before Trey Lance would at this point if you were playing like a must-win type of game. If you got the rest of the season, this all happens in week 1, maybe, now you're back into let's let Trey develop here. But you had 1 game to go win. You're going to go with the guy who you know and you trust to run the offense and to throw the football accurately, because if there's one thing Kyle does, as well as anybody in the NFL, it's get people open. He wants the quarterback to be automatic. He wants the ball to come out because the guy's going to be open against a certain coverage. And if you're not doing that, or if you're not delivering the ball accurately, consistently, it's hard really to ride with you. They're just not in that position right now to let Trey Lance go through all those bumps.
All right, last one for you, Tom. I send you off with a sports talk radio question, meaning you must give only one answer. You're not allowed nuance or gray area, okay? So
Great.
Who is more likely to be traded before the season begins in the next 2 weeks, Trey Lance or Jonathan Taylor?
I would say Trey Lance right now, just because the Jonathan Taylor trade is much more complicated to do. I've seen some of the reports about offers and things like that. This isn't a bunch of teams are bidding with the Colts, for who's going to get the most picks. You have to work out a new contract with Jonathan Taylor before you do anything else. And, his agent, Malky Kawa, wants a deal that's, at or near the top of the running back market. Depending how you slice it, that could be anywhere from $12 to $15 million per year. And Jonathan Taylor's a really, really good player. He was the rushing champ a couple of years ago. He's only 24 years old, but he's also coming off a season where he was battling an ankle injury. He ran for like 800 yards, had off-season surgery, just left the team a couple of weeks ago to get further treatment for several days on that injury as well. And so you're now giving up, top running back money at a time that nobody out there is getting top running back money. And then on top of it, the Colts want more for Jonathan Taylor than the Panthers got last year during the season for Christian McCaffrey. It's not to say it's impossible. It's much more complicated at this point. And let's also remember, there's a Tuesday deadline for them to work out a deal here. And that's for a variety of different reasons, including the fact that they have to make a roster move with Jonathan Taylor because he's still technically on the physically unable to perform list. But you have that deadline here. If nothing gets done by that point, the Colts are proceeding as if Jonathan Taylor is going to be a part of the team. With the 49ers, they're really proceeding with Trey Lance being at best their third-string quarterback, which all makes me believe that there's a better chance of Trey getting traded than Taylor. But we'll see, Rich. This is the fun of the coming days here.
So then answer me this question then, Tom. The Colts want a Christian McCaffrey-type return for Taylor, but will not pay Taylor like Christian McCaffrey. And the answer to both questions as to why is because they can. Is that a fact? Did I miss anything right there?
Well, the market's the market right now. I don't think that anybody is eagerly wanting to, on the team side, reset the running back market given where it is right now. But I think that that's one of the things that's been missed in all this is the Colts do want to pay Jonathan Taylor. They do eventually, they've always planned for that. They've budgeted for that. He's one of their core players, one of the big hits for Chris Ballard. They will pay him. They're just not going to pay him $15 million a year right now. The entire team, including Taylor, is coming off a disappointing season here. They've got him this year at whatever it is, $4 million or so. Next year you can tag him. You can tag him again. There's not a lot of teams that would be jumping to do an early running back deal. The last really early running back deal that was done on a big scale was Todd Gurley. Now, he had a degenerative knee, and, a year into that new deal, his career was virtually done. There have been other deals that have gotten done, with a year to go. Dalvin Cook got his done at a certain point, Alvin Kamara as well. But, the economics of that were different, and those guys were coming off of good seasons. Again, Jonathan Taylor's a really good player. The Colts have wanted him there. It's hard to speak to, given how everything's gone sideways in the past several weeks here, to say how they feel right now. But they've always planned to pay the guy. It's not like, we're not paying you and we're not trading you. They will, if someone will pay this top of the market money, they'll trade him. Until that happens, though, it's so many different parts that have to fit together. It's a really tough type of a deal to do.
Tom, you're the man, and I'm excited to have you every Friday during the season right here on the show. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
No way, Rich. Thanks.
You bet. That's Tom Pelissero, who will join us every single Friday during the NFL season right here on the Rich Eisen Show.
But hopefully not from behind a medical tent.
Well, if he's got to.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We want the best
He's out
there.
there.
But as you heard, he definitely left the medical tent shield towards the end of the interview because he has to get somewhere. He told me, please have me off the air 20 minutes to the hour when he comes on. And I'm a man of my word. Just want to say I hit that to the dot.
Yeah, you did.
But I also heard he had left his shelter, meaning
something was going
this
down.
is a wrap. Let's wrap. So just showing you how
The sausages, maybe.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.